Have you ever wondered what it truly means to love your neighbor? Is it just about the people living next door, or does it go deeper? Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful stories ever told, a story about a journey, a crisis, and the surprising kindness of a stranger. This is the story of the Good Samaritan, and it holds a timeless lesson for all of us. Our story begins on a dusty, winding road that stretched from Jerusalem down to Jericho. It was a notoriously dangerous path, known for its hidden turns and the risk of ambush. A man, let's call him David, was traveling this very road alone. He was a merchant, returning home after a successful trip, his heart full of thoughts about his family and the life he was building. He walked with a steady pace, unaware that danger was lurking just around the corner. Suddenly, from behind the rocky outcrops, a group of thieves sprang out. They were ruthless and quick. They overwhelmed David, stripping him of his belongings, his money, and even the clothes on his back. They didn't just rob him. They beat him severely, leaving him for dead on the side of the road, exposed and helpless under the hot sun. There he lay, barely breathing, a broken figure in the dust. Not long after, a priest happened to be traveling down the same road. He was a respected figure in the community, a man dedicated to serving in the temple. As he walked, he saw the wounded man lying by the roadside. You'd think he would rush to help, right? But instead, he paused. Perhaps he worried about becoming unclean by touching a bleeding man, which would prevent him from performing his duties. Perhaps he was afraid the robbers were still nearby. Whatever his reason, he crossed to the other side of the road and continued on his way, leaving David to his fate. A little while later, another person came along. This was a Levite who also served in the temple. He walked up to the spot and saw David, just as the priest had. He even got a bit closer, looking at the man's dire condition. For a moment, it seemed like help had finally arrived. But then, just like the priest, he too made a choice. He pulled his cloak tighter, crossed over to the other side of the road, and walked away, disappearing down the path. David was left alone once more, his hope fading with each passing moment. The silence of the desert was broken only by his shallow breaths. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the road. It seemed all hope was lost. But then, a third traveler appeared. This man was a Samaritan. Now, in those days, Jews and Samaritans had a deep and bitter history. They were considered enemies. They avoided each other, worshipped differently, and held a mutual disdain. So, when this Samaritan saw the injured Jewish man on the road, nobody would have blamed him for just walking by. In fact, most people would have expected him to. But this Samaritan did something completely unexpected. When he saw David, he wasn't filled with contempt or indifference. He was filled with compassion. His heart went out to the suffering man. He didn't see an enemy. He saw a fellow human being in desperate need. He immediately stopped his journey, knelt beside David, and began to gently clean his wounds with oil and wine, which were common remedies of the day. He carefully bandaged them with strips of his own cloth, treating him with the utmost care and tenderness. The Samaritan's kindness didn't stop there. He knew the man couldn't survive the night on the road. So, with great effort, he lifted David onto his own donkey, the same animal he was using for his own journey. This meant the Samaritan would now have to walk, leading the donkey slowly and carefully to ensure David wasn't jostled too much. He didn't just offer a moment of help. He took on the full responsibility for this stranger's well-being. He sacrificed his own comfort and his own time. He traveled until he reached a small inn. There, he helped David off the donkey and carried him inside, settling him into a comfortable bed. He stayed with him all through the night, watching over him, making sure he was safe and his fever didn't rise. He acted not just as a rescuer, but as a nurse and a guardian. The next morning, the Samaritan knew he had to continue his own journey. But he didn't just leave. He went to the innkeeper. He took out 2 silver coins, which was a significant amount of money, enough for several days of lodging and care, and gave them to the innkeeper. He said, "Look after him. If you spend any more than this, I will repay you when I return." He didn't just provide immediate first aid. He planned for the man's long-term recovery. Then, and only then, did the Samaritan continue on his way. Now let's pause and think about this. The story was originally told by Jesus in response to a question, "Who is my neighbor?" After telling the story, Jesus asked, which of these 3, the priest, the Levite, or the Samaritan, was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The answer was obvious. It was the one who showed mercy. The priest and the Levite were the man's countrymen, people who were supposed to be his neighbors. But they let rules, fear, or inconvenience stop them from acting with love. The Samaritan, the supposed enemy, was the one who truly acted as a neighbor. He ignored the social boundaries and the deep-seated prejudice of his time. He saw a human being in need and responded with selfless, compassionate action. This story challenges us to redefine who our neighbor is. It's not just the person who lives next door or someone from our own community, our own country, or our own faith. Our neighbor is anyone we encounter who is in need, regardless of their background, beliefs, or how different they might seem from us. Love for our neighbor isn't just a warm feeling. It's a verb. It's about action. It's about crossing the road when others walk away. It's about giving your time, your resources, and your compassion, even when it's inconvenient or costs you something. It's about choosing kindness over judgment and empathy over indifference. Every day, we walk our own road to Jericho. We will encounter people who have been beaten down by life, people who are hurting, lonely, or in need. We have a choice. We can be like the priest and the Levite, who saw the problem but chose to walk away. Or we can be like the Samaritan, who stopped, cared, and made a real difference. So, the next time you see someone in need, remember this story. Ask yourself, who is my neighbor? And then, go and do likewise. Show mercy, show compassion, show love. That is the timeless and powerful message of the Good Samaritan. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to be better. See you next time.